And we welcome you to the inaugural episode of the Rose and Bloom podcast on the Iowa Everywhere Podcast Network. I am Brent Blum, joined by former Iowa State and 12-year NFL quarterback Sage Rosenfels. And Sage, we're on the internet. It's good to see you again, and this will be fun, won't it?
This will be a great time. We're on the internet. This is very real, and it also means that it's very true. Everything we say and everything our guests say is 100% true because it is on the internet. And I want everyone to know that just starting off, all of our stats are going to be correct. All of our opinions, most importantly, are going to be correct. I'm really excited that we're doing this. Excited to have on the random guests that we're going to have on this year. Obviously, starting off with Kenny Mayne as our first guest. I've known Kenny for, probably, I probably first met him 20 years ago, back when I was, of course, playing. But I ran into him at Super Bowl events and things like that. He's absolutely hilarious. I do love the Rose and Bloom.
That was a Sage Rosenfels concept right there.
Yes, that was my idea. I think I'm sometimes good at naming things. I named a girl I know. She had a dog training company. She was leaving her corporate job to train dogs. And I came up with Dog on It at a bowling alley one night. I was on her team, and she's like, I got this new company. I was like, oh, Dog on It. You're on it, And sure enough, that's a month later, she's got cards made, the whole thing, Dog on It. You're in Omaha, Nebraska. But I am looking forward to the Rose and Bloom podcast. And we've got some history together. We've known each other for a while, of course. We're both Cyclone fans, but you haven't missed very many games, probably men's basketball or football, and a lot of women's basketball and whatever other sports. You have really seen it all. I might catch a half of an Iowa State game sometimes, or even none, and try to go back and watch highlights and things. But you're definitely deep into the Iowa State mix, and that'll be a huge value to this show because I'm going to be wanting to know what's going on with my Cyclones.
Well, we call you America's guest for a reason. I think that's going to be the fun part about the show. Yes, you know football. I mean, you played 12 years in the NFL, so you can break down stuff that happens. But also, what I appreciate the most about Sage is, when we'll chat, it won't be about football all the time. It's like, where are you now? It's like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego on this podcast? It's going to be, where is Sage Rosenfels? And today, you're at your home base, right?
I'm at my home base, Omaha, Nebraska, sort of quasi through a little studio thing here together with some helmets behind me. So this week here, a couple weeks I'm going to be in Philadelphia. This next weekend, I'm going to be actually in Maine, I believe, when I talk to you next Tuesday. I do travel a lot. And the further I get away from playing football, I think the less football and just sports in general probably have as far as influence on my life. People ask me how are the Vikings going to be this year? I'm like, I have not watched one Viking. I don't know who they drafted. I don't know who they signed. I know Kirk Cousins is their quarterback. I know they're going to be 8-9 or 9-8. And that's about all I know, right? I've now taken such steps back from the game that I'm not deep into to analyzing everything. I've done that for a long time. For years, called some games, but tons of podcasts. I used to do daily Minnesota Vikings podcasts for a couple of years, wrote articles for The Athletic. My first ever article I wrote ended up in Sports Illustrated. So I've done all these various jobs, and now it's down to the Rose and Bloom. But what I'm excited about is it sort of fits me and my personality well, is that I do want to talk about sports. We know that's where a lot of our fans are going to be coming from, but I don't want to talk about sports. I definitely don't want to analyze, why the Vikings are scheduled for 8-9 again. I don't want to, but occasionally we can. That is like sort of the foundation of my media expertise, but I do get further away from it. I like having conversations about people's lives, learning about people, learn about what they know more than, that as well. So getting to know them, and then also getting to know and learn about what they know and how they feel. And maybe also put them in a different spot. That's not necessarily an analyst. If we have another quarterback on here, or a former athlete, maybe we don't just talk about that sport they played in, because I promise you they are more than that. And I hope this show really highlights that and the people that we have on.
Well, we're going to get into Sage's experiences across the world as the podcast goes on this year. Sage from Makokata, obviously went to Iowa State. I can't help myself from doing the hot takes. So you may not talk about football, but I've always got hot takes to share, Sage. So just FYI.
Well, you have hot takes, and you have not only your eyes that have probably seen the game, but you have really dug deep into probably the analytics. There's stats
For
and
reference.
then there's analytics.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you go all the way probably through both and come to your conclusions. So I like to think that your opinions hold a lot of water.
So before we get to our first guest, which is Kenny Mayne, opening week this week in college football, Iowa State hosting Southeastern Missouri State. Do you know where that is?
I don't.
Have you been to Cape?
I don't know where that is, but I know it's a bus ride for that team.
Have you been to Cape Girardeau, Missouri before?
I have not.
Okay, well, put that on the Sage Rosenfels list. Meanwhile, Iowa hosts South Dakota State. So let's take you back, Sage. 23 years. You're a junior at Iowa State. You're in a quarterback battle with Derek Walker.
Yes.
And you get the opening nod for Iowa State against Indiana State. I'm a 14-year-old in the stands, in the upper deck. Second play of the game. Everyone's like, who the hell Sage Rosenfels? Who is this guy? And you run a naked boot, 52 yards for a touchdown. You guys ended up winning 33-7. But what's that first game jitters like, and what do you remember as a player?
Man, bringing back some memories. Well, who is this Sage Rosenfels? I'd been there for 3 years.
I know, but nobody knew who you were.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. I hadn't played much. I was the holder. I did letter, 2 years of holder.
Okay, good.
Anything you can do to help, right? I also get a letter is a good thing to do.
Did you get a letter jacket? Did they give you a
letter jacket?
But
it was stolen at a party out of my house. So, I see that some of my old teammates wear their letter jackets occasionally for like a Iowa State win or something that on Instagram, and I don't have mine. But, I rode the bench for 3 years and worked my way up. And, Dan McCarney and staff were so confident that I was the future of the program for my last 2 years that they brought in 2 junior college transfers to compete with me in the spring. One didn't make it past the spring. And Derek Walker, who ended up playing linebacker.
Right.
Our senior year, who I just ran to recently. He was from Butte Community College.
Yeah, I think it was Blinn or Butte or
Blinn. Yeah, one of the two. May is Blinn. I think it was Blinn. Strong and fast and threw a beautiful ball. And of course, but he was coming in from junior college, and I knew the system and whatever, and ended up winning that battle. But first game, it really was like, we're going to split the reps first game. And I ended up playing most of the game. He sort of played at the end. If I recall, when we had that lead, they may have put him in there for a drive that may have went 3 and out somewhere early. But yeah, second play of the game, we're in shotgun, and we run the zone read, which if you follow college football or NFL football, everyone has heard that phrase. They ran the zone read. And of course, it was this, you put the ball sort of in the belly of the back. When I was in high school, I was underneath center, and I put the ball in the belly of the fullback, and we run fullback dive for 2 yards in a cloud of dust. And, that was like the style of football we played, So I'd done this sort of ride thing where sometimes I could pull it and run the option, off a safety or something. And so I had done that before. I'd learned that skill before, fortunately for me. And so we're going into this game. But week one, the previous week, we're watching on Sunday morning. We're watching the USC, or maybe we're watching on Saturday, the USC versus Purdue game, I believe, at USC.
So it's like a week 0 game or something?
Week 0 game.
Yeah.
Drew Brees is the quarterback for Purdue. And they're in shotgun. Of course, we weren't in shotgun that much at the time. That was traditional. People were under center a lot more. We did some shotgun, but it wasn't like a big thing for us. But we watched them run the zone read, and we literally all at the same time were like, I think he's reading that defensive end. We had not seen that before.
Wow. This is 99.
This is 1999. We had not seen that before. And I'm like, they ran it 4 or 5 times, and man, Breeze walked in the end zone a couple times from the 5. And or else the run was good, and it was like, man, that's, can we do that? So we literally put it in the week before the game. We've got all spring ball, we've got all training camp, We've run all these plays 1,000 times. And the week before the game, the second play of the game, we're going to run this play because we felt so good about it. And we ran it, and like 9 guys tackled the running back. And there I was, white lightning running around the right side. 52 yards, I guess it was.
Yep.
And obviously that was a huge start for my career. Battling for a job on the second play of game, you go for a 50-yard touchdown.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I don't think my stats are anything special from a throwing perspective.
You accounted for 2. I think you also threw a touchdown pass in that game.
Yeah,
as well. But you won 33-7. It's not a competitive game. The Sycamores had nothing for Dana McCarney Cyclones.
They didn't. And then senior year, of course, very different. I am the starter. Derek's moved to linebacker. I'm the captain of the team. I'm much more feeling that responsibility, and also knowing like I am sort of the face of the team a little bit. I'm on the team calendar they hand out, all those things, right? I had a pretty good junior year. And so it's a different type of pressure going to my senior year. And we played Ohio University, and I did not play well at all. We won because we're just the better team.
Yep.
But I played okay. It was hot. It was hot. Like 98 degrees. And I just remember like I had some wristbands on that had plays on them, and they would fall down when I would throw, and it was just so hot and sweaty, and it was probably breezy. You would get these early season games at Jack Trice Stadium that had these southern winds coming up from, probably Texas and Arkansas, and working their way up through the Midwest, and it would be really windy, but like really hot. But you'd also, in like October 5th, my senior year, playing Nebraska home, it snowed. Winds coming straight from the north in the other direction.
Yep.
You're trying to throw spirals through, a 35-mile-an-hour wind. So it was quite the place to play. My junior and senior year, I guess I played well enough in both games, but nothing particular. But definitely, it's a huge way to start the season. Getting that first win, and also playing well. Young guys, Hunter Decker, the Iowa State guy, he has played, but this is sort of his team. He's the guy, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him play. I love watching Brock Purdy play all those years. Well, by the way, playing great for the 49ers, it sounded like the preseason. I wonder what they're going to do with him.
Well,
I wonder if they're going to make him relevant, if you get the joke.
Yeah.
So many teams do this practice squad thing: 2 active roster, 1 practice squad. Now they're signing Jimmy Garoppolo. Does not help. I do think they would want to keep Purdy over Sudfeld, who is the other backup, who's a little more of a veteran. He's been around a while. So he's played really in the preseason. But anyway, I'm looking forward to Hunter Decker, watching him play. Awesome high school multi-sport athlete. And
that's right.
Over the course of our podcast, we're going to have multi-sport athlete conversations, because I do think it's important for athletes. And my daughter's in dance, which makes her a one-sport athlete per se. So that's all it is. It sort of takes over. And I think for me personally, it was why I had an NFL career and a successful college career, is because of my base foundation of multi-sports. And I think it's why Hunter Decker is as talented as he is, and I'm looking forward, because you find ways. It's all about winning, and you find ways to win differently in different sports. Mm-hmm. Some of them have clocks like basketball, football. Some of them are like tennis. You have to sort of finish them off, or golf. You have to finish the 18. And I grew up my grandfather was a wrestler, so I grew up around wrestling too. I mean, really all of them. And I think that's going to bode really well for this Iowa State quarterback.
Well, let's get right to Kenny Mayne. We're literally taking him off the golf course because he's Sage's buddy, and he's gonna join us momentarily, and should be a good time.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, let's get to it, Sage. We now welcome on your good friend, everybody's friend that grew up watching ESPN. That is Kenny Mayne. How are you, Kenny?
I'm well. I'm glad Sage texted me when he did, although I was already on the move to be here for this. So my chaotic morning, I have a little friend group. We play golf, and one guy kind of runs, "Hey, guys, can you play Friday?" I'll go, and I didn't read it well. I thought we were playing today. So I show up at the course this morning, got up at 6. I'm ready to go. There's no tee time. The other guys aren't there. And then the guy says, "Dude, your thing is Friday. Today's Tuesday." So there's an old group going out. There's a young high school group. You get in the middle. You play by yourself, which I started doing. And then then oh shoot, I got to get back. I can only play 9 because I got this 9:30 thing Eastern time. And the guys are so slow. They won't let me through. I'm not playing horrible. And typically it's a courtesy. If you got a single or a twosome and you're a 4, especially if you're slow, you wave them through. It's just
gotta let them play. Yeah.
But
it's a gentleman's game.
But as the guy who should be waved through, I take the position I shouldn't have to ask. I'm waiting for this courtesy to happen, which it never did. But I still had fun. I just enjoyed outdoors, just kind of laid low, laughing at myself for making this mistake. And then additionally, now the timing is bad for this. I got to hurry, and these guys are going slow. So I quit after 8. I didn't play the 9th hole. Zipped over. Hey, can we just do it on the phone? I'll pull over, and then, no, let's just delay it. So ended up at this juncture. Here we are. I come home. I find out it's on. What are we on? Firefox, StreamYard.
Yeah, StreamYard. Fire. Yeah. Right.
But my Safari won't support it. The fact that I was able to move it to Chrome with Command C and Command V is almost like how the pioneers got us to the moon in 1969. Like I can't believe I haven't pulled it off. I thought, sure, guys, just call me on the phone. We'll fill. So I'm happy.
We're honored.
And it was a journey getting here, but life's a journey.
This is our inaugural episode of this podcast, and I think I'm going to try to have on some of my random friends that are throughout the mostly sports world, but I'm thinking not. I'm thinking maybe an occasional doctor friend I have on from high school or something, and you can solve some sort of orthopedic issue of our favorite.
I love that. Well, so, it's funny you say that because I, as you know, started a podcast, and I started with, all right, we'll have a list of famous people who are good at what they do that I know that'll probably say yes, right? Your Jamal Crawfords, right? Reliable people, friends. And then we'll shoot for the moon on some others. But the more I thought, I think it'd be interesting. Like, I'd love to interview the 70s sports guy on Twitter.
He's the best.
It's amazing. I don't know who he is.
Yeah.
He's not, I mean, he's famous in the sense that he has a very popular Twitter handle, so I guess that's good enough. But I think sometimes just interesting people are found everywhere. They don't have to have some, big backing going in, although you do want people to listen. So this week we have a guy you've never heard of who's clicking on that. So we'll see if we get our legs under us first before we experiment that far.
Well, and Twitter is a place where you can find interesting people fairly quickly, and people spread interesting people's takes, right? Sure. So I believe there's 80s college basketball. I follow that on Twitter too. It's pretty good.
Oh yeah.
It's not really, I guess, as funny as like the 70s, but it is fun to watch. Whatever conference it is, but old college basketball.
That's a good one.
Players from the 80s, from where I grew up, short shorts. Young Mike Krzyzewski.
Yeah. I need to get on that.
Watch those games.
And the other thing about Twitter, I would have trouble counting how many new relationships I have made with like-minded people. And you send them a note, they follow you. You send them a note on the side. Next thing you know, you've become quasi friends with absolute stranger. But in this crazy era we are living in, it's good to have allies.
Is that, Katie, is that how you met Sage? Because the first question we're going to ask everybody is, how the hell do you know Sage Rosenfels?
No, I think we met. Did I interview you as a player when I was doing my stories? Did we meet once that way?
I feel like yes. When I was in Houston, you were doing the main event. We did something, and I was in Minnesota. We talked. You were doing a Jared Allen thing. He was wearing like Bugle Boy short denim jeans or something.
The premise was that Brett Favre had the Wrangler jeans campaign, and the joke was that he wanted all the players to wear jeans the next game to kind of help bring up the product. And then Jared decides to go with Daisy Dukes, go short. But then Sage and I think became closer. We played in several of the veteran football games at the Super Bowl. I got a ruined ankle. I got a veterans foundation called Run Freely. We give these devices to veterans who need them. And Sage and I probably, what have we done it 10 times? I don't know, 8 times. We've done it a bunch of times.
I mean, it's not your event, but in some ways, to me, I look at it as Kenny's event. He gets a lot of the quote unquote, I think, celebrities there. I think a lot of guys like me want to play in it because of guys like Kenny. If you get invited, and it's a great event. It's Super Bowl week. It's early, all the big parties that you go to, Brent, the Maxim party and all that.
That's
those
me.
are like Friday and Saturday. But earlier in the week, I think those sometimes are the more fun events because it's really the sort of the true Super Bowl people, not the corporate that all comes in.
Right.
And Ken throws an event at a high school football field, usually in a rough part of town. I should say the rough part of town.
Well, whatever field we can afford.
Yeah, we can afford an economically challenged part of town, and it's a great event. There's
awesome.
Boys and girls clubs types of stuff there, it seems like, and they have a lot of fun. It's on a field, and it's against veterans versus former NFL players, and many times, of course, it's a lot of the players from that region. Right. When we were in Miami, I get to see Pat Surtain and Ron Gadsden and these different guys who I played with a long time ago. A lot of fun. Then they go to LA, and it's another, it's guys who played in Los Angeles or San Diego. The long snapper, Dave Bin for San Diego Chargers for like 19 years as a long snapper. Yeah. He's there. I'm like, I haven't seen you in a decade, hung out with him a couple of times in the Super Bowl.
It's a reunion for sure.
It really is a reunion.
The guys and girls on the veteran side, most of them have some disability. Not all of them. Most of them are missing an arm or a leg, or have some issue that they've dealt with, and it's just like a clean, pure event. Like I'd say it's 70% effort. Nobody's trying to kill anybody, but nobody's letting anybody have anything either.
Listen, I disagree. So for the listeners and or viewers out there, it's 7-on-7, I guess. You can rush the passer immediately, which we don't do. Just they do, it seems like to me. But the players, the veterans that rush the passer, there's 3 of them always. 2 of them have no legs. They're running
on their hands.
Yes. Yep. It's absolutely incredible. So as soon as you get the ball and they can move, and you're running around, and I can't remember the female's name that comes. She's like Jen
Welter, the first female coach in the NFL under Bruce Arians.
In the NFL, she rushed the passer, and she's like a high motor. If you're like, hey, she's a high motor effort player, that's what she is. You're just scrambling around trying to find somebody, and but it's so much fun. We were winning one time, and the sort of the general idea is that we're supposed to lose. And we're winning. It's fourth quarter, and Jeff Garcia is the other quarterback. I'm like, Jeff, hey, we have to throw an interception, like on this drive, to sort of allow them to get the lead. And Jeff goes, I'm not throwing an interception.
You just gotta win. Play to win the game.
Every game
look bad in front of the Boys and Girls Club over here.
Right. There's a million stories. Every game has been different. There are the games that he's describing where it's still everybody's trying, but toward the end, as a nod, as a tribute, yes, somebody get one pick, so we get one more ball. There was one, you weren't there. It was war. It was like a legitimate, hard fought. Guys are cranking, knocking people out of bounds. It got serious. My thrill of thrills, I threw a touchdown to Snoop Dogg. Okay, that's in my resume. Another one involving Jen Welter is one of my favorite plays in any level I ever played. Not that I was that great, but I played in college a little bit. Jen Welter and I just gave each other a glance, and she knew what I wanted, and I knew that she knew and we ran like speed. We were overloaded on one side. We ran speed option, flicked it out to her. She scores. Ricky Williams was in a game with us once. He played on our side. Sometimes the ex-NFL guys say, "Screw it, I want to be on the veterans."
Right. So Snoop and Ricky, that's your
that's dream team. And how about the time Roger Staubach in Dallas was going to come out and play, and he, of course, like you start. I was usually the only quarterback. As time has gone on, sometimes we have like 8 quarterbacks. We each get like one series. But Roger goes out there and pick 6 to open the game. He's pissed. He's still competitive. And I was like, stay out there, man. You do the next, you handle it.
Got the next, right?
Well, he stayed out the whole half. He wouldn't get off the field. I flew all the way to wherever the hell, Dallas from somewhere. And I'm like, hey, it's cool. He's Roger Staubach. He should play as long as he wants to. So I ended up playing the second half. But it was just a funny encounter. And it's cool too to see, his arm's not what it was, but he still cares,
right? Doesn't want to lose.
Well, Sage still has a huge arm. Warren Moon told me once when we were doing the story on Warren was the all-time fumbles leader at the time. Dave Craig was the second at the time when we shot this story. And the joke was that Warren was born with butter patties on his hands, and he had to go to James Andrews to have them removed. Then he was going to return to the NFL. So in the scene where he's had the butter patties removed, we're at USC, he happened to be in LA, and he's throwing the ball heavy. He throws a heavy football. And I was like, dude, you still got wing. He said, arm's the last thing to go. And it was just so funny how he said it. And it's so true, because I'm the same way. Ankle sucks, knees are questionable, my back's always sore, but a little warm up, you can still throw if you could ever throw.
We've got 2 Division I quarterbacks here along with me, so I'm feeling a little inadequate. Kenny, you played at UNLV, right?
I didn't play very much.
Okay.
I lament that daily. We had a great coach. We had a cool offense. I was a JC transfer. The other kid, we both came in. He was scholarship. I was walk on. I wanted to go. They recruited me, but then they chose Sam. And I had other options, but I was like, no, I like the coach. I like Vegas. I want to go to UNLV. I'm going to try to do this. So I got a scholarship right away, but was always second string. Sam actually led the nation in passing my senior year, 1981, long time ago. He led most total yards. Randall Cunningham was a freshman on that team. A whole bunch of good players. Jimmy Sandusky was All-America in JC, All-America at UNLV. Then he transferred to All-America at San Diego State. He had a long career in the Canadian League. Michael Morton, part of the Chad Morton, Johnny Morton family. Ray Krause. I'm leaving out names. We had a whole bunch. Todd Liebenstein was a high draft choice. He got hurt, though. He was a defensive lineman. So we had some players. We were like, we weren't competing for national titles, but we weren't a bad team at all. Like, I think we're 9-2 my redshirt year, 7-4, and last year we were, I think, only 6-6. But it was a fun time. Awesome. And I stayed close to most of those guys.
Really quickly, tell us about the injury you had and how that led you to what is now one of your passions of raising money for runfreely.org. By the way, is the website. You go on there and just donate money, and it's for Run Freely for this device that sort of goes below the foot up to the I guess below the knee.
No, it goes all the way over your knee. Your knee. It's quite a contraption. The story is in 1980, I redshirted in 79. 80, I started playing a little bit, but middle of the season, we played at Oregon. We're getting killed. I'm in there toward the end. Literally last play of a game, somebody sticks their helmet on my ankle. Fracture dislocation, last play of a game. I was going to say, Sage knows, well, you probably both know this. When you look at football film, at least the old school kind, game's over. This is film. This isn't video. This is film. You had to put it in the projector. So the last game ends, and there's always the pan from left to right, and then it dips up, and it goes to the scoreboard. That's how every game film should end, right? I'm there withering on the field. Guys are like picking up cheerleaders and shaking hands and talking and, getting pictures with family. I'm still on the field with this leg that feels like it's underground. I came back and played the next year somehow, but I've had, I don't even know, 10 surgeries through the years. Every decade, I got older and more arthritic, and it got worse and worse and worse. So there came a time, I think this is about 2012, where it was in really, really bad shape. Like, I was probably true depression, didn't even, signify it as that. But I didn't want to get up in the mornings because I knew I had to step on my damn leg and it was going to hurt. So I went in 1 week in Seattle. I went to the fusion guy, I went to the replacement guy, and I went to the amputation guy. And the amputation people talked me out of doing that. Wow. And God bless them, and said, get better therapy, get a brace. You're too young. Let's milk some more years out of this messed up ankle. Just by chance, I run into my daughter's PE teacher from grade school while I was lifting. And he saw me kind of limping around, as I was in there lifting. And he said, go see this guy in Kirkland. His name's Nino Pribic. He's a chiropractor. He'll just go once, just see what happens. He basically saved my ankle. He brought it back to life. Then I found a brace that worked pretty well for a while, but it was, as I've told people, like, I now have the Ferrari. That old one was the station wagon. It did its job. It got down the road. It took away the pain, and you could do things. But the new one I got is called an ExoSim out of Gig Harbor, Washington. As soon as I got it, I got on the treadmill day one and ran like 15 miles an hour, no pain. Wow. And I started crying for like 2 hours. I couldn't stop. Couldn't believe this blessing, and I called Gretchen. She's back east. and both of us said, let's do something good with this. So we endeavored to start a foundation. Took a little while, you know, there's logistics and there's paperwork and got to prove you're not a felon or something. And we've been going since, I think it was 2018, August. We had a big kickoff event. And now 4 years later, you know, we're like Sage said, if you had $10, that helps. Every $10 helps. Every 100, every 8,000 really helps. So everything helps. And we need to put on a couple more events to kind of get the message out bigger and maybe raise more money in one fell swoop. We've mostly been doing nickel and dime, but I think we're up to like 30, 35 veterans that we've gotten back into a better life. They can do stuff they couldn't do the day before.
How much does a device cost? Because I know we're a small podcast, we're growing, but Iowa folks are usually pretty generous.
Oh yeah, they're 9,000 retail. He gives them to me for 8 because I buy so many. I get a little volume discount. And I checked the account the other day. We have half enough money to buy another one. Like we literally just go one at a time. Last time I kicked in the last $2,000 because we were short. So, and I should give to my own charity anyway. But you know, Jamal Crawford's our number one benefactor. He on my last Sports Center show, he gave $1,000 for every year at ESPN. So he bought 3 veterans all by himself. 3.5. And we've had help from a lot of people. Dale Earnhardt helped out with a prize. The winner got to go be toured around Dale's racetrack facility in his house and his museum. And Steve Kerr helped out. Lenny Wilkins gave his name to it. The Rock, if nothing more than he gave me a picture to show that he's behind it. You know what I mean?
Right, right. That's all that matters.
Is this all part of this? Like the Twitter thing, though. This is where
for sure.
Some of these relationships really have occurred on Twitter. I mean,
100%.
And I know you hang out with some celebrities, but The Rock and Steve.
Time out for Gretchen. It's time out for Gretchen.
I have Matt on the phone.
Yes. Well, that's Sage Rosenfels. You met.
Hi.
Yeah.
How are you, Sage?
Hi, good to see you again.
How are you?
I'm great.
I'd love just what you would do on the new one, safer or crazier. Yes. She's talking to her financial advisor and she asked if I had any questions. So, yeah, I left out. Gary Payton was there. Jerry Rice was there. Steve Largent was there. All these guys showed up at my opening event. I asked 4 people. They all said yes. Lenny showed up on his own. And, you know, we need those kind of people, just like, you know, when you go to big charity golf events, it doesn't hurt to have somebody with some status that says, hey, I'm sticking my name on this thing. It's worthy.
That's awesome. So I did want to ask you, Kenny, because we are Iowa everywhere. You have been to Iowa before, because
yes.
I in fact, I have the story. We'll see if this technology works. Just a second.
Ben Roethlisberger has taken down 9 straight opponents, including previously unbeaten New England and Philadelphia. The win streak is 22 if you count his final year at Miami of Ohio.
We are in Iowa City, home of the co-Big Ten champion Iowa Hawkeyes as they kick off against the Red Hawks from Miami of Ohio. The
date, August 30th, 2003.
He came in pretty cocky. We were sitting in our locker room watching him on ESPN2.
No one can stop us but us. No one can stop us but us.
The state of Iowa had just gotten cable TV. Those were exciting times.
We're the most dangerous offense in the country when we want to be. Now let's do it, okay? Let's do it.
That really made me mad.
You mean the stuff Ben was saying?
No, the fact that they preempted Bassmasters with a football game. I really love fishing.
Roethlisberger would eat his words. He was picked off 4 times in a 29-24 loss.
On one of my picks, it was like fielding and punt.
It's picked off.
I almost called for a fair catch.
You know, my brother Nathan's the last quarterback to beat Ben Roethlisberger. It's a great pickup line of sororities.
2 words: Iowa Hawkeye pride.
This is the field of dreams, about 90 miles from the site of Big Ben's last loss. Really has nothing to do with football, and even less to do with the Roethlisberger story. But it's a great setting. And let's face it, when's the next time I'm going to get back to Iowa? He's kind of doing okay with Pittsburgh.
Kenneth, that's the NFL. There's 117 Division 1A teams. It's a whole nother level.
You might have noticed, in his first professional win, the team he faced had no Iowa guys.
In fact, in his 9 NFL games, he's faced a total of 4 Iowa guys, and one of them was subsequently released.
3 words: Hawkeye pride.
Iowa takes its 9-2 record into the Capital One Bowl. The players take great pride in having beaten Ben Roethlisberger. In the same way, Miami Dolphins players take pride in being the only unbeaten, untied team in the history of the NFL.
Make no mistake, the Dolphins have never beaten Ben Roethlisberger.
And get this, his school was called Miami.
And our uniforms are patterned after the Pittsburgh Steelers. Circle of life, man.
That was fun.
Oh, I mean, so walk us through how you went through the main event stuff, because that was awesome and obviously required a lot of pre-production as well.
I feel like that one had my old friend Tom McCollum's fingerprints on it. Like I had really good producers. We generally just collaborate. Like I'm pretty sure he came up with the whole genesis of that one there. Because he would look and find out like, hey, there's this real thing that everything we said was true except for all the ridiculous lines. And then you do a takeoff, right? You take a real thing and you go off the deep end, just like the one about the Brett Favre Wrangler jeans.
Yep.
One of my favorite ones we ever did was we did a fake Seattle Seahawk, and Coach Holmgren was great about it. He's a very serious coach, but he also had a great sense of humor. He let me bring a 5'7" Korean guy on the field smoking cigarettes, wearing jeans, pretending that they had just signed him for $1 billion because they want to win now. And the premise was that he plays all 22 positions. Turned out he couldn't play any. And so every year we would do a new story about that same guy. First, he was so talented, he was going to take out Eddie Vedder and take over that band. The next year, Pearl Jam hated on him and he couldn't even get a ticket to their concert. And I mean, talk about a connection. The day we shot the second version where they don't like him anymore, I went to a Sonics game. We were going to get Brent Barry to give us a line in support for the story. And we do that. He was great. And afterward, he said, hey, what are you doing tonight? I was like, I'm at your game. What do you mean, what am I doing? He said, do you want to go to Pearl Jam instead? And he's like, go in my locker, grab my keys, go out to my van. The tickets are in the console. And Tom and I went and saw one of the historic Pearl Jam shows, the Benaroya Hall performance acoustic set. They debuted Man of the Hour at that show. They played a Johnny Cash song. I mean, it was epic concert, right? So just because we did this dumb story about this fake Seattle Seahawk, I then met Brent Barry, who then told me to go to his van. You know, just weird stuff would happen. So more often than not, one of us would come up with kind of like the start. What if we did this? We'd trade notes back and forth, you know, on Monday or Tuesday, fly on Wednesday, shoot on Thursday, edit on Friday or Saturday. And there we go. We just did another one every week.
So, I mean, for what, 17, how many years were you doing Sports Center?
Well, I was on and off. There was a period where I didn't do any Sports Center for like 7 years, maybe. And I did all field stuff. I did those stories I just described. I did a thing called Wider World of Sports. Yep. We traveled around the world rather. And, you know, we did the Palio, the horse race in Italy. We did Irish road bowling, did all sorts of crazy stuff. I did Main Street, which was the comedy show, you know, that was on ESPN.com. Everybody from that show, Aubrey Plaza, Allison Becker, John Glazer, Ben Schwartz, they all went on to Parks and Rec. And Aubrey's like, you know, big movie star now. Time. They're all very talented and doing well. And we're trying to bring that show back, actually. It's funny, for my podcast, I've now interviewed all 4 of them because they're all funny. We have a relationship. They're all doing interesting things. It made sense. I just taped with John Glazer yesterday, so he'll be on season 2 coming up.
And what's the name of the podcast? Just for
it's
people
called Hey Mayne, Hey. Hey Mayne. The Kenny Mayne Talks to Famous People podcast is parenthetical, but that's what I wanted to call it to begin with, and everybody hated on it, including my wife. Like, that's so dumb. You're going to get your big joke. Nobody's going to remember the title of your dumb show. So we need a simple, use your name kind of title, which we did. By the way, my dad was born in Iowa.
No, so where at?
I have some Sioux City.
Yeah, Woodbury County. Give us your other Iowa experiences, if any. You did like a charity thing here like 12 years ago, I think.
Yes, we did that with terrible story. We did it. I'm forgetting the name of the town. It's such a tiny little town. The coach, remember who was?
Oh, yeah. Yep. Parkersburg. Appleton, yeah. Parkersburg.
Oh, yeah.
And I came one more time for a charity event and visited Exarben. Was it Exarben? No, I went to a different one.
Exarben's in Nebraska.
Good point. It was close. Yeah. I was in the neighborhood.
Exarben for the listeners.
General Midwest reference. No, it was the other track.
There's so Exarben used to be a racetrack in Omaha.
Prairie Meadows? Was it Prairie Meadows?
Prairie Meadows. Yeah. Prairie Meadows. Sorry, just got my tracks mixed up.
Just so everyone knows, Exarben is Nebraska backwards.
I know.
for
Common.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. There we go.
It's like Egyptian or something. Okay.
No, so I've been to every state except Alaska. So when I was a kid, my dad worked for the airline for United, and we would fly, $3 to Hawaii, like no joke, $6 first class. And so when we took family vacations, it was Hawaii or it was California, or just Alaska didn't make the cut. And then I've regretted it all these years because it's a huge, beautiful state. One day I got to try to find a way up there.
Do you think growing up, flying everywhere, probably partly led you into a career that also you felt comfortable with, of traveling a lot? Or, I mean, because you just lived in Bristol and you probably did travel a lot. You'd live in Seattle for a certain amount of time and maybe you wouldn't travel as much. But, with the wider world of sports and all the things you've done, you do travel all over the place. And you seem like you sort of always have. You're sort of a journeyman.
Yeah.
As far as that's concerned.
No, I think there's not just that, but just sort of general, however you want to put it, just my general awareness of other people and respect for other people, the way my dad, grew us up. Like we lived on this little tiny lake south of Seattle. It was like 2-mile run around the lake, very small, called Star Lake. And he would have the company party because we had this cool little house on this small lake, and everybody came. There was no one not invited from his work. So at a very early age, I wasn't just hanging out with white people, I guess is the best way to say it. Like I very quickly was taught by my dad to have respect for everybody. And I always remember him saying, you treat the janitor like you do the vice president of the company, like with the same human respect. And I think there's a lot of that lacking, like you just saw Ted Cruz making fun of baristas. Like actually baristas probably I've never done one. I'd be a horrible barista. I'd be terrible putting that. There's a skill to it. There's a website I like on Twitter, United Farm Workers, that talks about every job is skilled. The guy that picks, the product that you get on your store shelf later, that took skill to do that, to protect the crop, to go out there and battle the elements and put in the hard work. So I'm always offended when I hear somebody put down others because their job seems lesser, like in the pecking order of whatever status is. I was a garbage man in college and loved it, both for the money and it was a fun job. Actually, you're in great shape. It wasn't that hard, and have always had forevermore. Like I feel bonded to that fraternity of garbage men and women. There was a time after I quit a job in Seattle, after I got my first TV job, I called the garbage guy back and said, "Hey, I just quit this job. I need some money to, pay bills for a few months till I figure my life out." They'd moved to the claw. They no longer had the guy hanging on the back of the truck.
Pick it up. Yeah.
So the industry had passed me by, and the only thing they had for me was to make garbage cans. So I just left a TV job in Seattle. I'm doing the sports on a Thursday. On Monday, I'm making garbage cans. And it was actually good for the soul in a way. Like, all right, I'm starting over, and these were my choices. I decided to quit that job. Next job I had was selling prepaid legal insurance at a telemarketing place. Then I sold long distance for MCI for about 3 years. And in that little 3.5, 4-year period, I was still trying to get to ESPN because I'd been interviewed by them back at the old job, off the Joe Montana to John Taylor left to right post to beat the Bengals, 1989, I believe. And I just didn't quit. I just didn't take no for an answer. They kept freelancing me, and eventually ESPN2 came about. Keith Olbermann went back to Channel 1 to be with Dan. Stuart Scott moved up to be the anchor next to Susie. They needed one more guy, and that was me.
Because you did RPM Tonight. I remember that back in the 90s that you were doing
96. What happened was I got hired in May of 94. ESPN2 had a show called Sports Night, and it was meant to be like Sports Center, but more fun. You didn't have to wear ties, blue shirts, blue denim shirts. Keith had the leather jacket.
Yeah.
And we were covering all the regular sports, but we also kicked in, X Games type sports and skiing and, different things that were more participatory. And they even said, like, don't think you're moving over to Sports Center. Like, you're on this show. But that show got killed after about 18 months. So they just dispersed us all. Like, Pito did hockey, Stewart NBA. They told me, or they asked me, what do you know about car racing? I said, nothing. They said, okay, well, you're the host. And I'm like, what the hell did the other guy say? Like, what possibly could somebody say less than I said, But it turned out I grew to love it. like, it was so fun. I become friends with Dale Jr., Jeff Gordon, all these guys. I got to eat on Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s boat at a Daytona 500 week. And he was a sweetheart too. Like that whole thing about the Intimidator, you know, he was that on the track and he had that image and the advertisements, but you know, down deep, he was just like a good dude. He was nursing my cold. I remember grabbing medicines, and then I'm looking at old family pictures with Dale and Teresa at his boat, this big yacht. It's called Sunday Money was the name of the boat. And Dale is like, oh shoot, he looks at his watch. I got to get out of here. He had to go to like one of those 9 o'clock, you know, meet the sponsor hospitality things. And so I get up thinking it's time for me to leave. He said, no, stay, you know, like look at the pictures. And then he turns back and goes, but don't stay too long. That's the last time I saw him.
Wow.
What a story.
Sunday Money. What was the name of the
Sunday Money?
That was Sage's NFL career.
Yeah.
Right there.
I like Sage's NFL career. I mean, comes out virtually pain-free. I mean, you probably have little nicks and cuts, but
you want to show this? I was doing I was doing a buddy of mine's an artist here in Omaha, and he's doing this shot of the swimming pool, and he needs like this. He says he's looking for this big male figure that was decently athletic for a yoga pose, and so I go, okay. So I drive down there yesterday, throw on these new swimming trunks I got. And I go down there, and as I'm doing one of the yoga poses, he goes, "Do you have any injuries from your NFL career?" And I was like, "Yeah," because he goes, "Did you have shoulder surgery?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not really a scar or anything." He's like, "I'm looking for like a scar. Do you have like scars?" I go, "Well, I do have this broken rib."
Oh,
from Warren Sapp. I got this broken rib, mound there, and that became like the highlight of the whole my pose was all based off of like sending the broken rib to the sun.
I love it
for healing or something, and he was going to make it, of course, even bigger than it is. But yeah, for the most part, I did escape most of those injuries. My surgery on my left shoulder was from college lifting weights. Weights in a certain sort of, it's like a linebacker type of lift. Like, why would you ever have a quarterback do that? But that's what we did back in those days. It was everyone sort of the same, you know. It wasn't like, hey, the workouts designed for the linebackers are different than designed for the receivers, even though like now going forward with science and things, everything's more customized. But anyway, I'm doing this thing and my shoulder sort of pops out, pops back in, and it's like, ooh, right. And so it bothers me off and on for like the next 20 years.
At least it's your off shoulder.
I know. Well, that was the whole thing. It was like, well, if I go in for surgery, I'm going to be out for a while. So it's like, I can live with it. And I just lived with it for a long, long time. And a lot of times it wasn't an issue. I had to bench, certain weightlifting things bothered me. And, you know, sometimes actually when I would like hand off and then you sort of follow the ball with your hand, it would pinch in the back.
Oh, for sure.
But for the most part, I came out pretty lucky. It's feeling a lot better now. So the constant workout, but I did feel I got pretty lucky with that. Journeyman backup quarterback. You know, that's one thing you and I have in common is like we have a journeyman, a little bit of life. I live in Omaha, but I travel around a lot. Those who sort of follow me on Twitter, the social things, I get to travel a lot. Omaha is a great place to actually to travel from. The airport's so easy. It's so easy to get all over the country, East Coast, West Coast, the South. And I feel pretty lucky. And obviously, Kenny, you travel a lot. So that's something we have in common is that our love and thirst for traveling. And my parents exposed me to traveling when I was a kid. Probably helped shape our view of how we see things. I think I've seen a lot all over the country. I grew up in the country, small town, 300 people. Dad was from Chicago, so I had this like thirst always to go see all these cities and meet people and talk to people, and probably help shape my view rather than just living in that bubble of old Jackson County where I grew up. And I think, Ken, you probably have that. Probably one of the reasons we get along, and other than I do, just you know, you got to realize when we hang out occasionally, maybe we'll have a drink or something too, and to like listen to Kenny tell his stories of various things, and the quickness of your wit is just it's so fun to be around, because it's, you know, you in your world, you know, everyone has writers and people and producers and write themselves. It's pre-planned and contrived. but your actual existence, non-pre-planned, is quite hilarious as well, and it's fun to be around.
That's been similar to this. I don't see you guys looking at notes. We're just talking, and that's the best way on all these podcasts I've done. For everyone, I would maybe write 3 words. Don't forget to bring this up, because it's easy to let your mind slip. But otherwise, somebody says something that leads to the next subject and the next subject, and there's no dead air, because you get interesting people who can kind of fill the thing on their own. I mean, Bill Walton, there was a point where I had to use the restroom, and Bill, I got to go, and he wasn't listening. Bill, Bill, and I'm leaving. I'll be back. I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. 2 minutes max. He starts talking while I'm gone. I join him in the middle of this elaborate story about how he and some guys commandeered a government airplane pretending to be government officials that needed to fly over Mount St. Helens after the eruption in 1980. And it's a very believable story. Like, I think it really happened. And he said, I'm just waving a hotel folio. I'm just garbage. It's not even a government thing, So, and all of them have been interesting in that way. And I think the other day, I forget where I was. I think it was after golf, and some people were introducing me to their friends. And the guy remarked, "You're kind of like the same thing I saw on TV." And I said, "Well, that's how it should be, right?" Like, right. I mean, the difference now, and I'm happy to be in this position, not beholden to facts or saying the proper names of, an obscure hockey player. Now it's just whatever comes up, just spit it out. We just did a really fun shoot with the Manning family and JB Smoove, who's like the lead character. I was
going to ask about that. Yeah. Caesars.
So Caesars came to me, as did a few others, right after I left ESPN, and it just made the most sense. The Vegas connection. First, when I went on my recruiting trip to UNLV, first place I went was Caesars. And I used to be an usher at the prize fights at Caesars.
You've always been a Vegas or horse racing. You've always enjoyed the art of the bet.
Oh, for sure. And they've let me in this. I've been with them almost a year now. Basically, here, go to this event and do your thing. Like, there's no instruction that you have to do. Now and then they'll say, can you mention such and such, as a promotion or whatever. But mostly it's me screwing around. Like, I did Bobby Flay's restaurant in Vegas. I pretended to work there. I was the fishmonger, making up total lies about the fish, telling people that Bobby caught. Yeah, he actually fished in the Mediterranean. He was just back, And then the one I did most recently that just came out yesterday, actually, I went to New Orleans for the commercial shoot that's just now coming out. Yep. It's the big Caesars football campaign. So they got JB, who you guys know from Larry David Show, and all the Manning family. You got all of them. You got Archie, Cooper, Eli, Peyton. And I was not in the commercial. I was kind of on the fringe shooting stuff about the commercial, right? Like, I did a bit about JB's photo shoot, the still photo shoot, like he was an athlete, interviewing him about his performance, and he's just a funny guy. He can make you laugh. Just his body language makes you laugh. He's just silly and smart, and he kind of puts it all together. So the bit that I did was, and there wasn't too much acting here. It was me being pissed that I'm not in the commercial. So I'm trying to weasel my way in. So in the scene that we put out yesterday, I barge into their commercial shoot and just start, hey guys, if I change my name to Kenny Mayning, would that be beneficial? Like, could I see a space right there? And all the Mannings tell me to leave except Cooper. He's like, no, that's a cool idea. And Peyton's, no, it isn't. And they were great. And we had no script. We had 2 minutes to prepare it. They told me, hey, there's going to be a little break in about 3 minutes. You can go in there, but you got to knock it out fast. Wow. Told the guys, hey, I'm going to come in here and say something stupid. You guys react like, get the fuck out. And they did it perfectly in literally one take. And we made essentially like a 30-second spot.
Do you think Cooper saying, come on in, and Peyton saying, like, no, get out of here, that has something to do with, like, Peyton's elitism? Just like, since it was natural, unscripted, there's an elitism. Like, Peyton, I'm not sure what Eli is.
He couldn't help
Cooper, since he didn't make it, he's like just more welcoming and wants you more involved.
There might be something to that. Well, we did another one. It didn't run for some reason, and I'd love to bring it back. Where I say to Eli and Peyton, I said, hey, you guys, I'm sure you love it when all the radio shows talk about elite quarterbacks, that dumb thing. And they kind of giggle like that's dumb. And I said, Peyton, you were always elite. Eli, you were some of the time. And any perfect reaction, he's like, gives it the shrug. And I said, it's kind of like that with me, like with certain airlines where when I get on the plane, they thank me for my elite status. Is it like that? And Peyton's line was, I don't fly commercial. And it was so funny and so perfect. I think it got scrubbed just so he wouldn't look like he was.
Yeah.
But he didn't. Everybody knows he tells jokes. That it was a joke. So
you throw these out on onto Twitter. They don't always probably make like the Caesars commercials, but they make the flexibility, it seems like, with your new job compared to working for ESPN. Not the flexibility, but it looks like you get to be more transparent in who you are.
Yeah. Because they're, on SportsCenter, and that was fun doing it. You could be yourself and you could have fun and you could clown during the highlights or react to something, but you still had a mission. You had to be correct. Like being correct was the number one thing. Clowning around was the number two thing. And if you could do the two at the same time, that was the best thing. So I always said, I never really, what do you call it when you break yourself down? Deconstruct yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But I kept getting asked the questions, and I don't know, I was just trying not to screw it up. Like I didn't have some plan, it just kind of happened the way it happened.
Well, Kenny, certainly appreciate your time. You've given us way more than we expected. So, again, appreciate what you do. And what's the charity again? And we'll also mention the podcast as well.
Podcast is Hey Mayne, Hey Mayne. You can get it anywhere you get your podcast. Just Google it. We got Roy Wood Jr. coming on this Thursday. Very funny guy. And then the foundation is called Run Freely, RUNFREELY, runfreely.org. And you can help a veteran get out of pain. I was going to say, just in closing, I heard somebody called for a revote yesterday, and they didn't get my ballot from Seattle. We vote by mail. It's legal and it's very safe. So I ceremonially went to a local grade school and got an I voted sticker, and we won again.
Well, since we're talking about voting, I want to give you 60 seconds. I think that's important with your transparency because you can say whatever you want here. I'll give you 60 seconds on the dust up at the Capitol on January 6th.
It was worth it. I would say this. I would love it. I think people know my leanings from my comments I make on Twitter or the people that I repeat. I'm a huge fan of this young woman named Sarah Kendzior. If you listen to her podcast called Gaslit Nation, she is a PhD in authoritarianism, and she formerly would study other countries, right? Eastern European dictatorships and elsewhere. And she started just looking at the US because of all the signs that showed what was happening in our country. So I would invite those of you who think you're a supporter of the former Apprentice host, just like I shouldn't just listen to MSNBC. That definitely is a little more left-leaning. You shouldn't just listen to Fox. Like, find some independent journalists who are doing real work, who aren't beholden to corporate media and trying to spit out the same, stories. And there's truth out there if you're willing to find it. And I just hope everybody will educate themselves. I'm not saying people are dumb. I'm not calling other people that don't have it dumb. It's just that people get in a pattern and they keep listening only to the things that support how they already feel. Spread out, find the information. It's all there. It's all public record. It's not that hard to find. And maybe some folks will come up with some other conclusions than they think they have today.
I think the openness to curiosity on all sides. I think that the whole world advances the more curious we all are.
For sure.
About things we all don't know, and we all don't know about 99.9% of the things out there. And I think that is the key. I think those who feel like they absolutely do know, that is sort of the issue, because it's not simple. And I think there's the big challenge that I see when I look at things. Again, Kenny, it might be because the way you and we were raised and just sort of throughout our lives, we have traveled a lot and been around a lot of different situations, but nuance is important. Mm-hmm. I do think nuance is important. My brothers, I have two brothers. We are not the same. We are very different, right? But we like to put all sorts of groups of people, whether it's religions or colors of people or what country they're from, into one giant group, because that's much simpler for our sort of our we all have our simple-mindedness. But the ability to try to be curious, try to dig a little bit deeper, try to scratch things and maybe reveal some other things that you don't know. And I do think curiosity is sort of this huge challenge that if we could become a more curious society, I think that would be, the media world sort of gives us what we want. So in some situations, or I shouldn't say all sorts of media, social media, Twitter, it's sort of, we're signing up for what we want. We go to Netflix, this is what we want. So we sort of tell the media what we want and it gives it to us.
Yeah, I think people
watch different things, listen to different things all over the map, and then but try to dive deeper and want nuance. Nuance is important
100%.
for anything.
You're talking about how we feed ourselves what we already like your Netflix example is perfect. It gives you shows that are similar to the ones you already watch, and I'm going to watch that, and same thing with news and gathering information. And there are a lot of people who don't want to hear some truths about our country, and that doesn't mean you hate your country by saying that. It means, like, what was written, the original words, the text, the beautiful words from Jefferson, all men created equal. Well, that's a great notion, but at the time it was written, it wasn't written for everybody. And our best society is when we really are a mix. Like, we just are. We're not just a bunch of white people that started the country. We're a very diverse country, and everybody's rights should be acknowledged and be held as equal. And we're at our best when we use all our best resources. We got big companies that were started by people who came from other countries here that have had success. And we have people, in our culture who do it a different way than what you grew up and you are used to, but you can appreciate them. And I just hope we get to a point, I don't know when it's coming, but that those words have full value, that they mean what they said from their beginning.
Well, Kenny, thank you so much. What a great conversation. We're never going to be able to top this for our debut episodes.
You should just shut it down. And
Yeah,
I'm
we
on
should probably shut it
2%
down.
battery. Nice talking with you guys.
Thank you, Kenny.
Kenny, thanks for coming on.
All right. Sage, you weren't kidding. That is a very interesting man. And what a way to start the podcast.
Well, I think if you look at like my life, and it is an unusual life, and this being our first podcast, and when we talked about doing it, I said, if we're going to do this on Tuesdays, sometimes I'm in Omaha on Tuesdays in my house, like where I am now. And sometimes I'm traveling. Almost half the time I am in some city for some various reasons. Sometimes it's work, sometimes it's family, sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's an event, whatever it might be. And I feel really lucky that I get to do that. But it makes it hard to have a sort of job. But in the podcast world now, you really can be, you can't be anywhere. So getting to know Kenny, getting to know random people in my past is, I think, going to be a part of this show. It's probably going to be a little bit therapy for me. But hopefully also as the seasons go, maybe we're not talking U.S. Open tennis in November, right? Well, my guess is we're talking the NFL, college football, and maybe your NBA starting up. I know you're one of 12 NBA fans in the state of Iowa.
25 now, actually.
But I'm looking forward to this, to whatever happens. I'm supposed to be in Philadelphia in a couple of weeks. George Yang and I might together for a podcast in 2 weeks. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where this thing goes. And Kenny is a great first guest. He has really had quite the life. And you and I grew up at SportsCenter. We grew up at ESPN. I didn't even have cable at my house. It's funny, that Chad Greenwood joke. I grew up in the country. We didn't have cable. We had like an antenna on the roof, or even just rabbit ears on the TV for a while, and had 4 channels: ABC, CBS, NBC, out of the Quad Cities, KWQC, and then PBS. That was it. So I'd go to my friend's house that lived in town in Maquoketa, and I'd say, and they'd have SportsCenter on. I'm like, I'd watch it over and over. Saturday mornings was like 8 a.m. until like 11. I just watched SportsCenter like 3 times. I'd only seen the, 6:20 to 6:25, the 5 minutes you got on your local television. Never had seen anything like this before. So it was really cool to me to, grow up, of course, watching like the Dan Patricks and Rich Eisens and Stu Scotts, and of course Kenny Mayne is sort of part of my childhood. And then to be older, sometimes they say don't be careful, like meeting your childhood heroes type of thing. I'm thrilled I met Kenny Mayne. and somehow over the years we've become friends. I think that he's a great person. I think that he is such a good, meaning person. He wants to do good, have impact, do influence, and he's so funny that I love hanging out with him. And we do probably have that journeyman sort of life that has probably created some of our, similar views in some points, or at least helps us have conversations.
I think that's going to be great about this podcast. And again, Sage and I don't agree on a lot of things. We come from different places, and much like you looked up to Kenny, I actually grew up watching you play football, which is interesting and dynamic, but we've become friends. And so I think the great thing is to be curious, like Kenny said, and we may not agree, but if you listen to the other side, I think it could be helpful. And we're not going to be like some of the other podcasts on the Iowa Everywhere Network. Ours will be more of a conversation with cool people, and we'll leave it to the Williams and Hassel and Miller and Bruns and Bohannon and Stans. And man, we got a lot of good people on Iowa Everywhere, but we're going to have some fun with this, Sage. So appreciate your time and look forward to next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to next week. I think we're gonna get into some Iowa State stuff
Absolutely.
Here and there, depending on. I'm sure we'll talk about the game, how they did, each show. So, we know that's sort of the foundation. It's how we met. We met in a press box calling the Iowa State at Texas game about 8 years ago, and it's one of my favorite things to do. One thing that you're not doing this year, calling college football, and for the first time in a little while, and something that I'm not going to do this year either. But it's always one of my favorite things to do. I usually get to call one or two a year.
Well, Sage, we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good.